What a performance by Hamza Sheeraz, man. He went out there and did what almost nobody thought that he was going to be able to pull off. He goes out there and drops Edgar Berlanga 3 times, gets the fight called off in the 5th round, man. And he looked good doing it. Full disclosure, I took Edgar Berlanga in this fight. I thought that he was going to grow from that fight with Canelo, and I thought that he was going to be able to come out here and make something happen. I'm looking. Hamza Sheeraz, first fight at 168 pounds, and he's going to go in there against a puncher like Berlanga, who just grew from that fight with Canelo. Nah, I don't think it's going to go well for him, man. I could not have been more wrong. You know, that being said, I was making all these predictions coming into the fight. But almost as soon as this fight started, I already didn't like what I saw. As I just mentioned, Hamzah Sheeraz was the guy moving up to 168. This was his first fight at super middleweight. But when you looked at him in the ring, he looked like the bigger guy. He looked taller, frame looked like it filled out really well. He looked strong. He took this big, strong stance in the middle of the ring. That was the first thing I thought, ooh, maybe Berlanga isn't going to be the bigger, stronger guy in here. He could still be the bigger puncher, but he's not going to be the bigger, stronger guy. Then there was the fact that Berlanga wasn't using the jab. And it wasn't as though he was always known for having this prolific jab or anything like that. But we had always said he needed to get back to it. He needed to use it a little bit more, because if you're a puncher, you can't just go out there and throw power punches. You got to set him up. So he's not throwing the jab. When he did, it was landing here and there. Look halfway decent at times when he was using it, but he's not using the jab. He's going in there. He's not the bigger, stronger guy. His footwork and his distance look completely off. He's taking these big steps to try to get in. It's almost like he's leaping for these left hooks. And Shiraz just looked crisp, man. These punches were sharp. They were straight. They were crisp. He was going in there. He threw a right hand in the first round, and Berlanga got underneath it. You know, got to give credit where credit's due. He did get underneath it, but I thought, man, he barely missed that one. And if that's the type of punches that lands, it's going to be a game changer. You know, and in these exchanges, there were some punches that were landing against Berlanga that didn't look that good, and he wasn't responding really well. It was almost as though he was getting lost in the exchanges. It was almost as though he didn't know exactly what was going to come. He was moving a little bit slow. He was a half step off. When you see that early in the fight, you know it's only a matter of time before he's going to start to get lit up. Then he's doing these big, exaggerated shoulder roll type movements as though he's going to roll off a right hand. But he's at distance. There's no right hand coming, so you know that he's just worried about the right hand. He's not actually seeing it coming. He's not getting the tell from him. It's just all of these things are coming out there right in the first round, and I'm thinking this isn't looking good. This isn't the type of thing that's gonna fare well for Edgar Berlanga as this fight goes on. And lo and behold, as the fight goes on, it doesn't take too long. He starts getting caught with a few shots here and there, and he did land some punches of his own, but he quickly became predictable using that left hook right hand. Shiraz saw it coming, and before you know it, Berlanga squared up in front of him. He's getting lit up with some really hard punches. Shiraz is a very good combination puncher, and it didn't take him long to get Berlanga out of there. So my hat's off to the man. That was a great performance. Now you look at it, we went into this one and we were saying that Turki Al-Sheikh had plans. If Shiraz wins this fight, if Canelo turns around and wins the fight against Crawford that they have scheduled later in the year, he wants to make the fight between Shiraz and Canelo. So when you see a performance like this, I mean, look, it's easy to look on the paper and go, oh my God, who's going to beat Shiraz the way that he looked tonight? The way that he looked tonight and what he was doing, who's going to beat him? He just went out there and he put the super middleweight division on notice with a fight like that. He comes out there and he's saying he wants to make it happen, turns in a performance so you know he's going to have the fans behind him, turns in that type of performance. You know he already had Turki Al-Sheikh behind him. He's going to have him behind him even more. But we got to pump the brakes a little bit, right? We're not ready to put the man in the Hall of Fame just yet. Just because he went out there and looked like that against Berlanga doesn't mean he would go out there and look like that against Canelo or Caleb Plant or Terrence Crawford or any of the other handful of guys that we've seen, at 168 pounds right now or in the recent past, David Benavidez or David Morrell, who both competed there recently. But man, the guy looked good. Man, he looked good. And I can't wait to see him when he gets out there again. Now, do I want to necessarily see him in there against a fight against Canelo? Canelo's got a big challenge against him in Crawford coming up. So I'm sure he's got to stay focused on that 100%. I've got him as the favorite going into that one. Not just me. Obviously, Vegas does as well, and rightfully so with Crawford jumping up the divisions. But even though he's a favorite, Crawford is such a talented fighter, man. It's certainly no given. And we can all talk about how weight classes matter, and they do, and they're there for a reason, right? And the age-old saying is that a good big man will beat a great small man, and people say that for a reason. But that doesn't necessarily play out 100% of the time. And even though Crawford is moving up 2 divisions, he wouldn't be the first person to pull off a great performance. If I remember correctly, Shane Mosley jumped up 2 divisions. He was, 35-0 with 32 knockouts at lightweight when he jumped up and challenged Oscar De La Hoya at 147 pounds, and a lot of people thought that he was biting off more than he could chew, because not only was he jumping up 2 divisions, but he's fighting a guy like Oscar De La Hoya, who is just a beast in and of himself. But he goes out there and he makes it happen, right? So it's not completely unheard of. It's not like this something that would be unheralded, but boy, it would, man. There would be guys calling for him to be on the face of Mount Rushmore, I'll tell you that much. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that fight, even though Canelo is the favorite going into that one. And then we see the performance with Shiraz and what that would mean, and these two going at it. But man, let's pump the brakes on all that a little bit. Let's just talk about the performance tonight, because Shiraz went out there and performed, and he needed to. He was coming off of this fight with Carlos Adames, and a lot of people, he thought he got the gift. He got the gift by getting the draw. Think about that. You go out there, nobody wants to get a draw, and you get a draw, and people are talking about how do you get a gift. So obviously that wasn't the type of performance that he was proud of, wasn't something that he wanted to leave out there, didn't leave a good taste in his mouth or anybody else's. So he needed to come out there and make this happen, right? There was a lot of buzz. Then with the way that went down, he needed to erase all that and put it behind him. And then he went in there against Berlanga, a guy who was in the exact same position in the sense that he needed to make things happen. And he just stomps that dude out. So, and what about Berlanga? What's he going to be able to do? Because I'll tell you what, for myself, speaking for myself, a guy who picked Berlanga going into this fight, this is the thing. We look at his resume. His resume wasn't world class. It wasn't full of world beaters. He wasn't going out there and stomping guys, getting them out of there that were going to be in the Hall of Fame. His big claim to fame was all of these first round knockouts and this huge consecutive streak. He was passing the eye test. For being perfectly honest with each other, the people who were supporting him, the people who thought that he was going to pull out this victory, the people who thought that he was going to be able to do some things in the future, we were saying that he was passing the eye test. We were looking at it and we were saying, typically when we see a guy go out there and do the type of things that we see him do, when we see him put on these types of performances, this is what we see. The things that we see him doing, the movements that he's making, the power that he has, then he goes out there and he fights Canelo, and along with some other people, but I was saying he's going to grow from that fight. He's going to be a better fighter. He's going to learn from it. He's going to persevere. His ego isn't going to allow him to be crushed and beaten, defeated, and all. No, he's going to be better, right? So when you see the performances that he put on, you see the way that he has grown, think about that fight with Canelo and with that man and the type of guy that he is, it's illogical to think that he was going to go out there and make this happen. But now, when you see him go out there and get smashed the way in which he did, and it wasn't just that he got beat, you have to look at those little things. It was the way that he didn't see some of those punches coming. Those 2 right hands that barely missed, it was almost like he didn't see them. They just missed because they were misplaced. They were missed because Shiraz was throwing him where he thought Berlanga would be versus where he was. There was a left hook that missed the exact same way. It was like Berlanga came out of the exchange and it just whizzed right by his face. It was like he didn't even see it, man, okay? And when it's those types of things that lead you to think maybe we had this man overrated. Maybe he was just going out there and he was able to put on these really good performances against guys who were underperformers, and maybe Canelo was old, man. Maybe Berlanga was just a lot bigger and stronger, and Canelo was, thought, dude, I dropped this guy in the 3rd round. I've been beating him so much, I don't have to put the gas pedal down and try to get him out of there the way in which he would have when he was younger. I mean, think what would have happened if that would have been the Canelo that fought Triple G in the rematch. Would he have got Berlanga out of there? So it's just interesting questions, and it's ways that we're going to have to think about things now and perceive this, because after he got lost arguably 11 rounds and got smashed in that fight against Canelo, clearly didn't grow from it. I mean, even though he went out there and landed some punches and did some things here and there, like I said, the flaws that we saw tonight, I feel like they were too pronounced. They were too big, man. It's like, if you're going to go out there and you're going to be a world-class fighter and you're going to consistently perform at the world-class level, you can't miss those kinds of shots. You can't have no reaction. You can't have these exaggerated movements where you're looking as though you're trying to roll off a right hand that isn't coming, and you're at the distance that he's at on top of it. So there was a lot of things out there that I didn't like. Okay, and I don't mean to be completely jumping ship and all of a sudden be like, oh, I think Berlanga's going to win the fight. And, oh, all of a sudden I think this dude's underrated, as though I'm just being trendy and rolling with it. I mean, I'm really, truly looking and telling you I was making these assumptions based off him passing the eye test and things that I thought were going to happen, right? These were projections. They weren't necessarily based off of all of these superstar performances that we saw against world-class performers, world-class opponents. But now that we've seen this tonight, I don't know, man. It makes me really question that. So let me know what you guys think. I mean, how's the dude come back from this one? What does that type of a rebound look like? We saw Oscar De La Hoya jumped on him already, man. And of course he was going to. But let me know what you guys think. What did you really think of this one? What's going to be next? And what about Shiraz? Right? Let's not make all of the talk or too much of the talk necessarily be about Berlanga, because it was Shiraz who went out there and stuck his flag in the ground and put the super middleweight division on notice. Let me know.